And it brought me back to the conversation about question 1, the strong mayor charter amendment. I've been thinking about how they did, Charter Commission in the clerk's office did these anonymous interviews with department heads about how unbearable it was living under the 14 bosses. Do you remember 14 bosses, Melody?
How could I forget?
And so we changed our government structure in part in response to the anonymous complaints of department heads who had to speak anonymously for fear of the professional consequences. And here we have dozens of below management level city staff, lots of black and brown staff, speaking out publicly on the record, using their real names, looking their boss in the eye and saying the conditions we are working under are intolerable, and we're looking to you on the city council, using the power you have left as the legislative body, to fix this by not putting this person who is not up to the job into this job.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
All right. This is the Wedge Live podcast. I've been away. I've been out of town for a week, and I thought this would be a good episode to introduce maybe a monthly segment, although Melody is on probation. Monthly with Melody. The idea is we can have Melody on, if this works out, on a monthly basis to update us on Southwest news, because Melody is with Southwest Voices, the Southwest. It's southwestvoices.news is the website, right?
It is.
I was in Chicago for several days and missed out on a lot of news. What did I miss, Melody? Aside from the weather seems really nice. This is a nice time to live in Minneapolis.
I was saying the same thing with my colleagues today in our editorial meeting, that it's like, I really love Minneapolis right now, but with all of its flaws, and, it is a beautiful time to be here. And it's a good time also to show people around the city, just because there's lots going on, including tensions within the city, which we can talk more about. And before we dig into what's been going on, can I just get a little bit about how it was in Chicago? What did you, tell us something Wedge Livey about Chicago, something about the transit or the cats or...
I rode transit extensively. They have a really good transit system. And so I'd only been there briefly once before, and it's you look at the board where it lists how frequently the trains come, and it's like, oh, this runs 24 hours every 15 minutes, even at 4 a.m, literally 24 hours every 15 minutes. Even a bus is coming 24 hours a day, even at 4 a.m, every 20 minutes, if it's a relatively busy bus line. So the transit is pretty good. And I went to Uptown. I visited Chicago's Uptown, the original Uptown. I don't know if a lot of people know that our Uptown was named after Chicago's Uptown, and that's why it makes absolutely no geographical sense that it's southwest of our downtown. Uptown should always be north of a downtown, but not in Minneapolis, because we stole the name from Chicago. Very unoriginal. And Chicago's Uptown, they've got a Woonerf. Only their Woonerf makes more sense.
Can you explain to people what a Woonerf is?
It's a shared street. We have moved away from the Woonerf language. It's very inaccessible. People don't like... is that a Dutch word?
I'm Swedish, so that's all I care about.
It's a shared street. So you can... The intention is you can, walk it, bike it, drive it. Car traffic is slower, so it's safe for everyone to kind of be intermingling on a shared street. Everything has a sign on it that's called Uptown. It's very over-branded. like ours, and it got me to wondering, is this really Chicago's Uptown, or has Chicago's Uptown also creeped out geographically to where people are calling places that aren't Uptown, Uptown? Does that happen in Chicago too? I don't know. It reminded me of Eat Street a little bit. It's lots of Asian shops and restaurants. It's got a train stop right there. I think it's called Argyle on Uptown. The scale of the buildings and the sidewalks is remarkably similar to our Uptown. It felt like walking through like the Wedge, Whittier, East Isles. The building heights were about the same. It felt like it's of the same era, the same kind of people built there, that neighborhood. And Lincoln Park also kind of has a similar vibe in terms of building scale to maybe sidewalks and buildings to maybe Loring Park. Sidewalks are a little too narrow. It's uncomfortably narrow, the sidewalks. Buildings are a little taller. So I noticed that kind of stuff. I probably went on way too long about this, but thank you for asking me my opinions.
That was a great summary of Uptown. I used to visit Chicago all the time because I have family that used to live in Chicago. And then I lived in Milwaukee when I was a teenager and a young adult, and I would go to Chicago to see shows all the time because if bands didn't go to Milwaukee, they'd either go to Madison or Chicago. So I made many a trip to Madison and Chicago. And so I always love hearing about Chicago because it's a home away from home, as they would say. But also I was just Googling where Uptown was in Chicago so I could get a sense of, where it is in relation to the places I would go. And the photo that they have when I Googled it includes the Uptown Theater, and it looks scarily similar to the Uptown Theater that we have, like the facade and everything. Okay, so you want me to tell you what you missed last week?
Yeah, let's go into that. What did I miss? What happened?
You were gone all last week.
Yeah.
Last weekend, we're pretty much into farmers market season, so I'm just going to say, yay, it's farmers market season, and there's farmers markets open all over the city. We have a couple here in Southwest that you can enjoy yourself. So that's some big news, probably on the lesser scale, if you will. But 'tis the season for me to go to the grocery store and look through produce and be like, why didn't I just go to a farmer's market? Because I can get triple the amount of broccoli for half the price probably, and buy it directly from the growers. So
I'm an Aldi person. I don't go to farmers markets.
that's fair.
The
Buy
produce,
all of your...
The produce at Aldi is not always great.
Yes.
Not always great. So you probably should go to a farmer's market.
Yeah. And they just use a lot of unnecessary packaging for their produce. At any rate, that's one headline. Also with Southwest Voices, every Friday in our newsletter, we're highlighting a different vendor. So the first week of farmers market season, we highlighted a person that makes macaroons, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And I never wanted to eat one before, but then after I saw pictures of her macarons, then I wanted to. So that's cool. Enough about farmers markets. Urban Outfitters is closing on June 20th, and I went inside that store.
After it was closed, you went inside?
Nope, because it closes June 20th, and it's only May 31st.
That was a weird one. I saw that when I was away, and it's one of those things, you know how they do the in memoriam segment at an award show? And you're like, I thought that man died 20 years ago? That's how I feel about Urban Outfitters. I thought they had closed many years ago.
Yeah, well, because we had that huge sweep of closures with Columbia, North Face, Apple, and a lot of those were timed with their leases because they were on 10-year leases, and so that's why they all tended to close at the same time. Fun fact. I'm actually having a hard time figuring out what year that Urban Outfitters opened. I actually talked to somebody at Urban Outfitters headquarters, and they quoted me at 1990, which just cannot be true.
I don't feel like it existed in 1990.
Yeah, maybe they meant 2000, but said, or 1999. Maybe there was a little typo there. But there's no news stories about this store opening, which is that I could find in a pretty elaborate PhD trained Google search. I can easily find the closing and opening dates for the Apple Store and other ones, but this one's a little bit trickier to find. So if anybody does have I'm like literally asking you as listeners and viewers that if you have a recollection about what year it opened up, that would be great because the record is hazy on this. Do I want to email the landlord or the owner? Sure, but it's more fun to just talk with people about it.
I don't think anyone cares. It's the kind of place like, this is before my time in Minneapolis, but I think Urban Outfitters, the Apple Store, there was a brand of griping about Uptown. It was like, oh, Uptown has changed. It's gone all corporate, national chains. We hate it. And now we've entered the phase where the chains are all moving out. And I think the same crowd of people is complaining about how Uptown is dead because they're leaving. But that big theater thing is coming to the Uptown theater. It's not going to be a movie theater anymore. It's going to be a music venue, right?
Is this the thing that First Ave? See, this is again. Is it the First Ave people that are buying it?
I've done no research for this.
Okay, I'll do it real quick.
But I'm pretty sure it's going to be a venue for music and performances.
This is why. So according to the Star Tribune, everybody's favorite publication of record, Ned Abdul, whose company Swervo owns the Armory, has remade several other properties. So they're going to be that the person who owns Armory is going to redo it. And the reason why I thought about First Ave is because the comparison is, quote from the Star Tribune, the new Uptown Theater would resemble St. Paul's First Avenue run Palace Theater in size and concept, with an open floor and seated balcony. And capacity for 2,500 people.
A lot of people. And I think I've heard it argued that that's why we have to maintain the 730 space parking garage behind the 7 Points shopping mall, which is no longer has a grocery store as a part of that redevelopment. It's going to be just retail space.
There's going to be an artisanal market with the owner of Suki.
What's an artisanal market? Did I stump you?
I mean, it is what you... I don't know.
Really, a grocery store I can't afford to shop at? Is that what an artisanal market is? There's a cat on the screen. Melody's cat is on the screen.
Comment.
You should watch on YouTube. I feel like we'd front-loaded all the stories and the chit-chat that no one cares about and have guaranteed that people will not continue far enough into the podcast to get to the part where we say really good, interesting stuff.
I'm sorry. Are you saying that my reporting on Uptown that I just did in a flashpoint moment is not engaging and useful? I think you and I have a very different understanding of what people think is interesting or boring.
I'm very focused on City Hall,
last time.
And I don't care very much about farmers markets.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's just talk about what you want to talk about then. It's your podcast. Let's go to City Hall. You want to talk about some Heather Johnston drama? Let's do it. Let's go. What do you want to say?
Could be we're expanding our audience. You should put this episode in your newsletter and drive an audience to it, and then I'll feel obligated to cater to that farmers market loving audience, or else I lose that crowd.
I already do put most of your well, if they're relevant, I put them in your newsletter, and those are often the ones that are the ones relevant. That have the most listens. So
always relevant.
Okay.
So are you going to sing your theme song? I was thinking of setting it to music, and I don't know what
sure.
to use.
Okay, I'm just going to make it up, right?
Yeah.
Do I get music to riff on, or are you going to add it afterwards?
I can add it afterwards. I have some things, but it's basically just like classical music. That won't work.
You don't have like a beat, like a boom, chick, monthly with Melody. No. No.
You want a whoosh sound?
It might be too funky for me.
You don't want that one.
Monthly with Melody, where I share all the news for you and me. Monthly with Melody. Let's get down to it, John and me. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Wow, you nailed it. Okay.
Dude, I just made that up.
Yeah, on the spot. You're like a freestyle rapper.
Hire me. I'm not a freestyle rapper. I'm a singer. I'm a white lady. I can't be a freestyle rapper. Are you kidding me? That would tank my career.
So, this is a very awkward transition here, Melody, with your...
Daniel's really interested in my Wedge Life mug. Yes.
So, the 2-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder, it just feels weird to commemorate an anniversary of something that I don't feel emotionally like it ever ended for me. It feels like one rolling event. Like when we commemorate Pearl Harbor or September 11th, kind of felt like those things ended. But with George Floyd's murder, everything that has happened in Minneapolis since then has been, at least for me, maybe it's just me and how much I pay attention to local politics. Maybe if you're tuned out, it feels like that ended for you. I don't know. It hasn't ended for me. I'm still in that place where it's one thing after another, all related to that event. And I'm not criticizing anyone honoring the anniversary or saying that's inappropriate. I'm just saying it feels... It doesn't feel like it's over. And so, do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Here?
Yes, I'm nodding along.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of sentiment that I've seen from people who live specifically close to the area of 38th and Chicago or did a lot of work, community work, activism, reporting after the murder of George Floyd, where on top of what you're saying, it's such a traumatic anniversary that, again, as you were saying, like, this is no critique around people who want to celebrate George Floyd's, what has been termed an angelversary, or, it's important to commemorate these dates so we don't forget. And also, there's no way that the citizens of Minneapolis are going to forget this day. Like, it's just ground into us, especially the people that were close and that were really involved during that time. And I also agree, this is something that Jason Garcia, a co-host that pops on oftentimes actually, has shared also, that it hasn't ended. It's continual. And just to bring in the City Hall reference with the interim city coordinator, Heather Johnston, many, many people referenced George Floyd's murder and the uprising after it, and, the racial reckoning that our city is going through, current or like present tense, as a reason why they were testifying, about her nomination because of what happened 2 years ago. So yeah, I can totally understand why you feel that way. And there's lots of examples and anecdotes that support your feelings, because it's a continual conversation here in Minneapolis, which I guess people who aren't from here or who visit, wouldn't understand, and that's fine.
Sometimes I wonder if there are people who live here who wouldn't understand that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I hope not.
Well, it's easy to seclude yourself here, isolate yourself. You don't have to involve yourself in the movement if you don't want to.
Because whether it's the problems with our police department, our racist police department, every once in a while we get another report stating how, reminder to Minneapolis, your police department engages in a pattern and practice of racist behavior. Your police department is a disaster. Or, we had a whole election on public safety in question 2, and that's obviously all related to George Floyd. it dominates our politics, and we had a backlash election where I feel like an effort to change the way we do public safety was rejected in that backlash, which I think hurt a lot of people, myself included. And I think it still infuses our politics. Those are my thoughts.
Your thoughts are heard, and you're right that I think that people may think that they're not impacted by it, and they can maybe on the day-to-day avoid it. But if we started asking them like, oh, about things in their lives and things they've chosen to do or not do, like a lot of it can come down to our racial reckoning. You know, even just like going and voting last year. Did you vote? If you voted, you were a part of that movement, whether you, not necessarily a part of it, but you were impacted by the movement.
Another thing that occurs to me, going back to my trip outside of Minneapolis, I didn't pay any attention to local news when I was in Chicago. I just
like Chicago's local news or our local news?
Chicago's local news.
Okay.
I was paying attention more to Minneapolis news and not at all to Chicago's local news.
So you don't have any idea what Chance the Rapper is doing right now?
No, but like, I don't know. There's a wave of violent crime across the country that I assume is happening in Chicago too. And I think it affected, like I was just not aware of it. Everything seemed fine to me. I'm sure it wasn't fine in some places. It made me ponder the ways being hyper-focused on whether it's the Citizen app and crime notifications and local news with a focus on crime stories. And I'm not arguing that people should bury their heads in the sand about real problems that exist. That, my heart breaks for people who are victims of violent crime. It really does. I see people I care about in those stories. Like, I relate to stories about victims and feel really bad about that. But also, like, paying so much attention to it here in Minneapolis, kind of like it wears you down. And a break from paying attention to the local news was healthy for me. And by local news, I'm referring mostly to like TV news that is hyper focused on some negativity.
You watch a lot of local news.
I do.
Yeah,
because I feel like it's influential. People who are barely attached, who barely pay attention, one thing they do pay attention to is like TV news, those very short 2-minute clips without a lot of context, but which are very sensationalized. I think it's influential. I think it is important for someone to pay attention to it, and it's probably healthy for most people to not pay attention to it.
The reason why I donate to your Patreon is to pay you for the mental health and wellness that you'll need to take on after watching local news. Because as I was a journalism and mass comm major, right? So like I would watch all of this stuff just throughout my career. And early on in my career, I made a boundary for myself that I don't watch cable news. And I rarely watch local news because of the anxiety, especially that cable news can create. And there's like a whole rift on why that is. But it's a similar reason to the local news. It's like these small snippets that broadcast news is just like that to begin with, that because it's supposed to be short and snippet driven, and we have to get the sound bite, which means like half of a quote, not a 3-sentence quote from somebody, that you're going to lose a lot of context. And I don't find that to be a compelling form of journalism. Not to say that there's some really great broadcast journalism out there, but I don't see it on cable news, and I don't see it in these local news programs all that often. And it just makes me so angry and anxious that it is important to track it. I'm just not the person that can do that work. So I thank you for doing that labor.
Thank you for honoring my service.
You're welcome. Never mind.
So did you watch the entire public hearing related to Heather Johnston's?
Multiple times, yeah, because I was grabbing quotes and stuff for the article. So
multiple times. I should read your article then.
Well, it's not like okay, here's what I will say about watching it multiple times. I think that whole meeting should be transcribed.
Yeah, I was personally very affected by it. I thought,
Yeah, I think it should be in the public record, everybody's statement. I just can't write an article like that. I wish I was more than one person, but I think it would be a great contribution to the public record for that entire thing to be transcribed.
Because it's remarkable to have staff, current and former staff in the city coordinator's office, speaking against their boss.
Yes.
There are professional consequences for going on the record, not speaking anonymously.
Yes.
About systemic racism within the city, a hostile work environment,
Yes.
that sort of thing. And it brought me back to the conversation about question 1, the strong mayor charter amendment. I've been thinking about how they did, Charter Commission in the clerk's office did these anonymous interviews with department heads about how unbearable it was living under the 14 bosses. Do you remember 14 bosses, Melody?
How could I forget?
And so we changed our government structure in part in response to the anonymous complaints of department heads who had to speak anonymously for fear of the professional consequences. And here we have dozens of below management level city staff, lots of black and brown staff, speaking out publicly on the record, using their real names, looking their boss in the eye and saying, the conditions we are working under are intolerable, and we're looking to you on the city council, using the power you have left as the legislative body, to fix this by not putting this person who is not up to the job into this job.
Yeah, can we do do you mind if I do a little recap if people are a little behind on what we're talking
go
about?
ahead.
So, the quick recap is that Mayor Frey, and I wrote about this, so we'll, link it, like the URL, when people link to stuff that you can't click on Instagram, where it's like www.southwestvoices.news.
Link in bio.
Yeah, well, some people are still behind the times. They're a millennial like me, and they'll just put the whole URL. Anyways, Mayor Frey appointed Heather Johnston as interim city coordinator last summer when the existing city coordinator left. Now the mayor has been like, okay, we need a permanent city coordinator. So I nominate our interim city coordinator, Heather Johnston, to be the permanent one. City council, please vote to approve my nomination. And then it was kind of like record scratch, like skirk, like squeak, or like a tire scratch, like squeak,
I don't have a sound effect.
Okay, well,
I have this.
And I feel like everyone's time is being taken up, including all of the people in the audience.
That's all I have.
Yeah, it was a long session. But so basically what happened was, once that was announced that was going to be Mayor Frey's nomination, a lot of city staff that works under her wrote a public letter and contacted the media, which in my world, I wear many hats. I used to be a community organizer, union organizer. Contacting the media is kind of like a last, we don't ever want to do it, but we do it if our internal workings have not worked out, right? We're trying to do it internally, and then it doesn't work out. And so then we go to the media. So they went to the media, and, even without them speaking out, there was some city council people were already kind of I think, hesitant to support her to begin with, right? Or do you think the city council people found out because of that letter? I guess that's hard to say. But no, Elliot Payne knew, he was aware, right? Because he's been,
Probably.
What I can say is that when the nomination was officially made, there was time for there was a public hearing granted for the nomination process, which I think is typical for nominations.
Yeah, they all get a public hearing.
And
so
some are whatever. They're never like this. They're never full of an hour and a half of people, both that supported her and did not support her, testifying for a really long time. Yeah. And And so that's what John was then talking about, was like, then all of a sudden, all these city staff people, none of which were her bosses, all below her in the, in the executive order, testifying against her boss, which is like, yeah, imagine you doing that at home, listeners and viewers. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, even if you hate your boss, even though if you know you're right, it's not something that you just wake up and decide to do.
And there was a dynamic of, so this isn't personal, this isn't necessarily about Heather Johnston. There were a little bit of a cross-section of support. So you had like Steve Kramer testifying in support of her, Carol Becker testifying in support of her, somebody from the Minneapolis Chamber testifying in support, but also people like
Mayor
Robert,
R.T. Ryback.
Former Mayor R.T. Ryback, but also Elizabeth Glidden, former council member who was pretty progressive, and Robert Lilligren. So, but it was people at a peer level to Heather Johnston, like people who she either like elected officials above her, kind of, or people she worked with as colleagues in a colleague style relationship.
Right, like worked with, not worked. Yeah.
And one of the criticisms from some of the members of the community and staff who spoke was, we don't doubt she's a wonderful person to work with, who knows her stuff, who would make a great budget director or CFO, for example, but she's just not the right person to foster an anti-racist, a safe place to work that supports Black and brown staff. She's not the leader for that role. And there was an effort and a theme in that testimony that this is about leadership, and she's not the right leader to help lead the way with these larger problems in the city enterprise.
Yeah, and I'll clarify that too, in that when you were saying, John, that it's not, why people were saying it's not personal and why she's not the right person to lead these efforts. So a narrative or a theme that came out in people testifying or just speaking their experience was that these systemic racism issues and the toxic work environment came before Heather Johnston. Like that was made very clear. It wasn't that she blew in and created all of this. Right. The issue is that she walked into this culture, and council member Latricia Vitaud acknowledged that she knew that Johnston did know that she was coming into this work culture that existed. But she is not, the workers, the staff feel like she is not the person to start untangling this toxicity that is in place. And that they've shared anecdotes, suggesting that she's not the right person to do this really heavy racism-based work, which is very hard to do. And is like a great example of how the murder of George Floyd is an everyday thing that we are working on, because that was when they started bringing up, we all said 2 years ago we were going to do this right and start breaking down the status quo. And here we are, we're telling you she represents the status quo. We can't have that anymore, right? It's time to do another shakeup. And Jacob Frey definitely is not interested in shaking up this nomination. So before this all happened, almost the entire staff of the Division of Race and Equity at the city of Minneapolis left. Yeah.
Decided, and it's by accounts from staff at the city, it's because of things like this. And one potential of disregarding the input in the outcry from staff, if you take their account seriously, is that there could be an exodus of Black and brown staff from the city of Minneapolis, people who just care about doing this work.
Yes. I was just going to say the institution that I worked for before working at Southwest Voices was going through a very similar culture shift where they hired people, right? They finally got their act together. their racist act together, I guess, and were like, all right, we're going to hire on a bunch of Black and brown people. And then the retention levels for the Black and brown people were incredibly low because they weren't working on the culture of our workplace. And so it just was a problem to begin with. And then it also includes people who are doing the work that might not identify as Black or brown, but like do the advocacy work. And it's just so exhausting. Like I could relate to a lot of the things people were sharing, unfortunately, because I experienced that stuff at my old job, or I would hear people's stories. And it's just like, yeah, you just want to get out because you're just burned out. And the work is so important to you that you know that like your energy is not being used in the best way in these spaces. And so it was just a bummer to hear that stuff because I was like, oh, I know. Yep, I've been in that kind of workplace before. So it's a very real threat. Like it's not a veiled threat. Like people will leave. People already left and they will continue to leave.
Yeah, there was testimony from one person. I can't remember if she currently worked. I think she left. Mm-hmm. And she's a white woman who said she was recounting these various events like,
I once sat in a meeting with a public works manager who, upon seeing some Middle Eastern names of my colleagues, just settled on calling them Aladdin Abubu and Dayo for the rest of the meeting. The other participants nervously chuckled along. That manager still works here. Those BIPOC employees do not. I talked to a few BIPOC coworkers when the racist Christmas tree that was up in the lobby of the 4th Precinct Police Station was not known in the press yet. It was decorated with packs of Newport cigarettes and Popeye's chicken packaging. Before it broke in the news, that Black coworker talked to his white supervisor, asking if he could switch assignments with a white coworker so that he didn't have to go there and fix computers because he didn't like walking past that tree. The supervisor's reaction? He told that Black employee to close his eyes when he walked past it. That manager still works here. The BIPOC employee does not.
And she went through a bunch of stories like that and said, the person who did that still works here. Those Black and brown employees do not still work here.
Yes.
Things like that. Also, is his name Brian Smith, the Office of Performance and Innovation, who is fairly high ranking within the city coordinator's office. He manages the team of people who basically developed the behavioral crisis response team who deal with some mental health issues. Basically, the big project that came in response to George Floyd's murder by MPD. The only thing we can like point to and say, here's the new thing we developed as an alternative to police response in the city.
Yeah, so when you call 911.
He manages that team of people, and he's a Black man, and he was basically vouching for the accounts of the staff testimony from that day and said,
but I want people to know that if you can use us in that way, knowing this is a sometimes horrible place to work, but you can brag on our work, but still want us to remain unseen, unheard, disrespected, and put in the background like some slave, it can't continue. And so I'm proud of my staff. I'm proud of sustainability. And I'm proud of others for taking the risks that they've taken. I know this may be the very last day that I speak to any of you. It just might be that way. And so I'm just coming up here. I'm not trying to tell people how to vote, yay or nay on Heather, but I do want you to consider what it is you say out of your mouths, what it is you write in documents, and whether or not you have the right person to make that become a reality, because they've not demonstrated that in previous jobs or this one. Thank you.
Yeah, he got pretty, I quoted him a lot, but in case I'm just going to read one thing that I think maybe you're referring to. So this is Smith saying this. I want people to know that if you can use us in that way, basically like being proud of the work that we're doing, knowing that this is sometimes a horrible place to work, but you can brag on our work, but still want us to remain unseen, unheard, disrespected, and put in the background like some slave. It can't continue. That was some powerful testimony.
Yeah, and I would recommend for people to watch all of that testimony. It is maybe 90 minutes or more of testimony. It is quite a lot, but also worth hearing.
It is. It's because people bring in the larger movement that we're in right now, and there were multiple people, I think you remember this, John, that they spoke directly to the city council and said, like, you're voting for the status quo that we've been trying to dismantle for many years regarding racial justice work. So if you vote for her, you're voting for that status quo. Like, that's your legacy. I think that maybe that was something else that Smith said, was like, this is your legacy. Somebody said that to the council. And I think that, like, that's really powerful. Like, and that must be a hard place for somebody. Well, I don't want to, like, whatever. You can critique what I'm about to say, but, like, that must be a really hard spot for somebody to be in if they're like, oh yeah, I really support Johnston because of all the wonderful work she did to, like, get our city financially secure, right? But now all these people are saying that, like, basically, if I vote for her, I'm voting for racism. Basically, it's like they were being pretty clear about that, and you're supporting a systemic racist system that isn't going to change.
And if the department, like, explodes, if the city coordinator's office just, if we're hemorrhaging talented staff who do a lot of the work that makes the city run, that are trying to turn the ship of the city in a more racially equitable way, if we lose that staff, and you have another story like we had with the Division of Race Equity, that's very embarrassing to the people who voted for Heather Johnston's nomination. I feel like I'm dragging. You're
not dragging. I actually want to say to that, though, like, gosh, this is going to sound harsher than maybe I want to say with my own voice, but, like, are they embarrassed? Because, like, like you said, we've had all these reports about the police. We've had, like, usually when people complain or wage complaints against bosses, you never get the kind of detail that these workers were willing to supply.
Yeah, this never happens. That's another reason why people should.
We're not being sarcastic, like, because you and I can be pretty dry and sarcastic. Like, we're being serious. Like, this never happens. Are they going to be embarrassed? Because otherwise, I feel like the meeting that happened late last week, where they could have voted on it, but City Council Vice President Linnea Palmisano, moved to delay it. If they were in agreement that, like, no, she's got to go, we wouldn't be having this delay conversation, right?
Yeah, even the mayor was like, I support delay. I support getting to the bottom of this kind of thing. I don't know.
Oh, right. So this is the other thing that listeners and viewers might not know, is why there was a delay. So there's technically an HR investigation going on about the city coordinator's office, which we can assume to mean a large part of that is going to be about Heather Johnston's leadership. Unclear. She is the leader. I would say, like, if Southwest Voices was under investigation, I would be part of that large investigation because I'm the editor. I would be a little nervous if my office was under investigation.
Melody, you warned me ahead of time that you have shit to do, and
did you just cut me off?
This is my way of moving us on to another topic. So
did you just cut me off mid-sentence when I was going to make a point?
Yeah.
Okay, hang out. You have worse ADHD than I do, I think.
I'm trying to respect your time.
I appreciate that. I want to say one more. Let me just finish my thought.
Okay.
That the delay was because some people wanted to see what the results were of the HR investigation. Because let's say that they vote her in and then the investigation comes back and it's, full of problems and red flags around Johnston, that the city council doesn't have any power to, like, rescind their vote. So that was another little variable that got added in. Okay, now my thought's done, and now you can transition.
Let me put on my pundit hat, because I have talked to absolutely no one with any inside information on this, but I think her nomination may be in trouble. Just based on that public hearing that I watched.
Who do you think you want to do a vote Like
No,
a
we
vote
shouldn't
prediction?
Count votes. We shouldn't count votes or predict votes, but
Okay, well, you said it
I
was
don't
in
know.
trouble,
It
so
seems
I
like
hope
this
it's
is
in
a
trouble.
this is a very large red flag. And I know we elected a bunch of clunkers to the city council in 21, but maybe we have a majority of them who don't want to go down this road, who are willing to listen to the red flag. I also worry that maybe it gets a little political because you've got like the chamber and Steve Kramer on one side and Carol Becker, and it can feel like politics, but it's also like the serious work of the city and having a city government that is healthy and functions well and does good work and has a good environment for the people who work there, because those people do important work. It's important. It's not politics. I hope it doesn't become like, I support the mayor. We must confirm his nomination because the mayor is my friend kind of thing. Okay, now we can move on. I'm going to read the ad. I usually just insert Jason and I'm going to read the ad live. You
I'm so excited to be part of an ad. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Melody, we were talking earlier about how beautiful and nice it is to live in Minneapolis. The weather
sure is
lovely.
John.
Go outside, sit at a restaurant, watch a show, listen to music. And our sponsor is Dispatch, sending you reports from the bustling Minneapolis and St. Paul arts and culture scene. For May, Dispatch welcomes us all back to Filmtown with a profile on the return of the MSP Film Society in their new home at St. Anthony, Maine. Plus, there's the return of the Red Eye Theater, comedian Maggie Ferris's new album, the Caterwaul Music Festival, and much more. Check it out at dispatchmsp.com. That's dispatchmsp.com. What do you think? Are you going to go to dispatchmsp.com?
I already have gone to dispatchmsp.com. I really enjoyed their article about Caterwaul Music Festival. It happened last weekend, and it was like a noise heavy metal festival, and it was great to read about. And I noticed that I'm not getting paid for this at all, so Dispatch can send me a personal check. But I also noticed that something about Dispatch is that they cover stuff that's going on in the city that like you probably haven't heard of. Like I think that Caterwaul Music Fest is the best example of that. That it's some obscure stuff that like doesn't get repeated in other publications. So
yeah, support our sponsor.
Yeah, and also buy a mug at wedgelive.com. You know what? I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna come out here again sometime with my Wedge Live coffee mug that you can't buy in stores, and just sit here and wave at people because that's fun.
Well, you can buy them in stores, Melody. You're wrong. You can buy them at the Wedge Live store.
You can?
They are on sale now.
Oh, damn.
That's why I'm giving you one. Product placement.
I thought it was a special thing for me only.
No, other people, you can buy them.
Oh. Well, thanks anyways.
Go to wedgelive.com, look for the store tab, and purchase a mug, as seen on Lindale Avenue.
Here's the other side. You can also support it. There you go, wedgelive.com.
Yeah, it's got a different image on both sides. Should we talk about the Hennepin situation? It's been delayed. I don't know that I have much to add other than 24/7 bus lanes, please. Do the right thing. Metro Transit supports it. The entire Minneapolis legislative delegation supports it. All the evidence says do it. It works. I went to Chicago. They have bus lanes. Are we less than Chicago? Are we worse than Chicago?
I will say that I asked Katie Jones, who is who is part of Hennepin for People, who that organization is pro bus lanes, pro 24/7 bus lanes. I asked her before the hearing about this at the Public Works and Infrastructure meeting if this has happened before, like where there's like been a plan at this phase in the design and somebody has come in and been like, whoop, blah, 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 blah. And Katie Jones says it's unprecedented, obviously biased in that she's 24/7 bus lanes, but like still she's very familiar with infrastructure projects.
I think the key point there is that Margaret Anderson Kelleher has arrived at the last minute.
Right.
I think maybe plans have changed at the last minute before, but like introducing a new public works director at the last moment and having that person like reverse years of work that went into a plan that said
Yeah.
24/7 bus lanes is
And
bizarre.
the 24/7 bus lanes were like a major. Somebody mentioned this. Maybe it was Peter Schmidt or somebody mentioned. Sorry, whoever it is that mentioned the smart point that like 24-hour bus lanes were always in the plan from day one. It was never an option.
Yeah, I think I said that. I'm the smart person who said that.
Oh,
Maybe.
really? You didn't like quote somebody?
No.
I'm just joking.
was me.
John. Of course you said that. And so that's peculiar. And also, I don't know, I'm not a normal boss by any stretch of the imagination, but like, if you put yourself in the shoes, like, okay, you come in, you're new, and there's this very contentious plan. I'm just trying to read her mind. Maybe she was thinking, oh, well, all these businesses are upset. We can
No,
fix that
she's
easy.
thinking Lisa Goodman is my best friend. We have the same politics, and therefore, F you to this bus lane. That's what she's thinking.
Why
It's
would
as
that
simple as
help anything, though? Like, what is the benefit of doing that?
Serving Lisa Goodman's preferences and Margaret Anderson. I mean,
Why would
Margaret
you want to
Anderson
do
Kelleher
that?
has a perspective. Like, she's a politician, right?
Yeah.
She has a perspective, and she is enacting her perspective and the perspective of her friends. Like, she's not coming at this from a transportation professional's perspective. She's coming at it from a very political perspective. And that's how it should be seen. And my ask of the city council is to disregard the political perspective of Margaret Anderson Kelleher. That's politics. City council, you do your own politics. You do what you believe in, because you're not getting the unbiased, unvarnished, correct advice here on what the right thing to do is. Use your own judgment. Don't be swayed by Margaret Anderson Kelleher, who's pushing you to go in the wrong direction. It's like a 20-year-old vision of how we should be building our streets. Give us the bus lane. Another interesting part here, and I'm going to squeeze it in because we got to get Melody out of here in under an hour, I promised.
I was late,
is-
so it's fine if we extend it like a couple minutes.
Is this idea that the mayor decides, the mayor just decides how the street is going to be laid out. Like the executive branch, the public works director who works for the mayor gets to decide whether this is going to be a full-time bus lane or not, which is a bizarre interpretation.
Since when?
It's not how it's worked in the past.
We always do community engagement stuff, and then usually it's the engineers that decide.
Well, the city engineer, I think, was who they said decides. But that person works for the mayor. And so what you're really saying with that argument is the city council doesn't have the power to designate a bike lane anymore or a bus lane, or the mayor could reverse bus lanes and bike lanes that we already have. That doesn't make sense to me.
The last question makes more sense. I think they're trying to figure out the legal, what the city council can and cannot do. And I know people have opinions about it.
That's one of the reasons for the delay, is they're trying to
Yeah.
figure out the legal part of it. I think it's a very bizarre argument. And the city attorney, the one of the deputy or assistant city attorneys who was at the city council meeting, had no answers to explain. Like, I think Marquette and Second was what council member Robin Wansley Warlebaugh asked about.
And then Nicolette Mall, too.
Well, for Nicolette Mall, they said, there's something about a state statute controls what happens on Nicolette Mall. So
Yeah.
that's different. He had no answer for Marquette and Second, and how in the past the city council has acted to put in bus lanes, full-time bus lanes. It's all very bizarre and power grabby. And I don't like it, Melody. I don't like it at all.
I like that that's one of your taglines. I don't like it at all. You say that.
Is it one of my
sometimes.
taglines? Have
Yeah,
I
you
said
say
that?
it. You don't say it all the time, but you say it in specific situations when you really are upset with and you disagree with something.
That is my emphatic phrase. Take heed. Okay.
We're not going to find out about the next steps with Hennepin until for a couple weeks now.
It was
FYI,
like
everybody.
June something or other. It's going back to committee. Is that June 6th?
Here, let me look at my council and committee schedule that I printed out.
Nerd.
Okay. Look who's talking. So Public Works is green. So they're meeting again on June 9th.
Okay. And then
And then the city council meets the next week.
16th.
A week from then.
So
Well,
stay
now I
tuned
just
to that. Stay
Tore this
engaged.
off my wall.
Oh, and I think I also wanted to talk about what's happening. If anyone has listened all the way to the 54-minute mark or wherever we're at here, when I edit out all the awkward moments and terrible things that we said that we don't want to see the light of day, this
We'll say what you
Sunday at Open Streets on Lindale Avenue,
Yay!
we're doing. It's a great thing. It's how many years of Open Streets on Lindale? At least the normal June date where it's warm and nice outside. We missed 2020 pandemic.
Yeah.
I think we also missed 21 and we made it up in October or something when it was kind of chilly. So we're back for June.
Right.
It's our normal Open Streets Day. And the Wedge Live podcast is doing a special, I'm calling it the world's first pedal-powered podcast studio. We will be mobile. We will be pedaling. We're going to have a four-wheeled, two-seater bike. And I hope to have guests seated next to me at Open Streets as we pedal through the crowds. So look
it.
for us.
And
will you
go ahead.
Will you join me as one of my?
Oh my God. I was going to invite myself along. Yeah. I'm also going to be tabling for Southwest Voices. We'll just be out, just saying hi to people, letting people know we exist. You should totally pick me up. I'll let you know what corner we're on. I requested either 24th or 38th because those are two blocks that are near Southwest Voices headquarters. But then I was like, man, I should have picked 25th Street. I mean, you know what? I can be rogue, but really, I really want to sit in the median again. I want to just table on. I'm just going to bring a chair and
I'm in love
spend
with
at least
that.
an
That
hour.
was a great episode, the median episode. People
God.
should go to YouTube and watch that if they
It
can.
is so. It was so well shot.
Thank you, Conrad. Shout out to
Thank you so
Conrad.
much, Conrad. Ugh. I'm can't believe that I was a part of that. It's so cool.
I think that's it.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, John.
Thank you for joining me on the podcast, Melody.
So
And I think you did a real good job with your theme song.
Thank you. As long as you mix it well, I think it'll be fine.
I hope I don't screw it. I'll put it together and I'll use it as the closeout song for the episode. So that's what we're listening to right now as we end the episode. My guest has been Melody Hoffman from Southwest Voices .news. And I'm your host, John Edwards, back in Minneapolis.
We missed you.
Thank you. I missed all of you as well. I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful time in Minneapolis. Get outside and enjoy yourself. Tune out the local news as much as you can, the local TV news. And stay engaged in the longer form news in context. And this has been a very drawn out closeout to the show. I don't usually give weird advice at the end. So this has been the Wedge Live podcast.
Don't forget to brush your teeth twice a day.
Yeah, good news and good night.
Monthly with Melody, where I share all the news for you and me. Monthly with Melody. Let's get down to it, John and me. 3, 2, 1, let's go.